All right, good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us. As you will know, we have a couple of shows on tap for you guys today. We do have an exclusive interview for an indie horror film known as The Parish that we will be having today. And we will also be having This Week in Review happening a little later, just after that show. But without further ado, I want to introduce the host that I have, or should say the guest that I have now. The person that I have, they do not need any introduction. They are a multi award winning actor, particularly in the genre of horror. Just to give you a taste of some of the awards that they have earned over the course of their career, they have earned a Best Actor award for their efforts in Daily Revisions at the at the Lon at the they've earned awards, as I said, for Daily Revisions, uh, and they're two-time Best Supporting Actor for their efforts at the Fantastic Awards. They've also won winner for Children of Sorrow at the Shockfest Film Festival and at the LA Film Awards for their efforts also for that film, as I was mentioning before, for Daily Revisions, just to give you a taste of some of the accolades that they've earned. So without further ado, let me bring on, see if I can get my friend on here, Mr. Bill Oberst Jr. Hey, Bill, how's it going?
Brandon, how you doing, man? Good morning from Hollywood. Good afternoon to the East Coast.
Yes, indeed. So first off, happy New Year. I hope all is well with you. Just hopping right into this film, The Parish, as I was mentioning before. Can you tell folks how you joined this film?
Yeah, they asked me to be in it. So that's an easy one. They asked me to play a priest. The filmmakers, Angela DeMarco and David S. Hogan, who together formed Mighty Tripod Productions, their husband-wife, wonderful life team, and also a production team. David directed, Angela starred, and they co-produced the movie. So it's an exorcism movie, but it's about more than exorcism. The main character, Angela's character, has lost her husband. And so it's really a movie about grief and the ways it can manifest. She's trying to deal with her daughter by herself. The daughter's having a really hard time and going through some dark places. And that's where the priestly business comes in. But I had wanted to play a priest doing an exorcism for a long time. I prayed about this actually, like way 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, Lord, please, I would love to play a priest in an exorcism. So shortly after that, I got cast with Doug Jones in a movie called Hell's Kitty, and we were priests doing an exorcism on a demon-possessed cat. So I said, well, God, you have a sense of humor. But then, lo and behold, a few years later, here comes this one. So, yeah.
Indeed. So, with that being said, just as you said, there's so much at play with this film, and particularly with the characters surrounding this story. So, even with your character, with the Pastor Felix, and talking about his history and everything that's going on behind the scenes with him, can you talk a little bit about that? Because just as you said, this is a film very much about, even though don't it is a horror film, and it has those elements there. There's far more at play with each of the characters and dealing with, as you said, grief, and that I feel like that idea of PTSD, and I feel like it's really fascinating with your character, with the history that he has with, and I don't want to spoil what that is specifically, but the history that he has feels like he would be the most well equipped, to be able to have empathy for that, and to be able to speak to that. So can you talk a bit about having, a character beyond of just being that that everyday good guy of that is, trying to help this family. a lot of times when we have a lot of these pastor characters, it's kind of one note, and we don't really get a whole sense of their entire life. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, this face, I can't do uncomplicated good guys. One, they won't hire me for it, and two, I'm not suited for it, and three, it's not my soul. I'm really into wounds, Brandon. I mean, we talked about this before. Like, if I can't find the wound in a person, I don't trust them, and I don't get along with them. I have to see the wounds because I get so many, and characters are the same way. I look for the wounds. So this one was great because he's a wounded warrior, and as you say, he's got some PTSD issues. And I've known a lot of preachers over my life, a lot of priests. I toured and performed in churches for over a decade, and many of these people I met, men and women, are deeply wounded people. I don't mean that they're bad or evil. You know what I'm saying? I just mean that
Yeah.
they have vulnerabilities. They got vulnerabilities, and then they end up in a profession where you're not supposed to have any vulnerabilities. So a lot of times after
Right.
performances or before, I would talk to these preachers and priests, and they would tell me, all the pressures that are on them and the hardships, the things they've had in their past that their congregation doesn't really want to hear about or deal with. So that's what gives a good minister to me has a joy, but also a weariness, and it's that mix together, that two. That to me it's almost Christ-like. It's a mixture of sorrow and joy together. Like you can't have one without the other. So this character, he had some of that, and yeah, I think it's what makes him a good warrior against evil, because he knows it's real because he's felt it.
For sure, for sure. And speaking to that, can you also uh, speak to, I guess I know last time we were speaking, we were discussing just that idea of adjusting within, the projects that you've done. Very much, I think you were quoted as, one last time we spoke of, I'm so used to being like face to face, right in front of people, and being able to be super close. And right now, there's a very much a pivot that's happening with how that looks on set. So can you talk a bit about that right now, and how that is looked right now? Has that changed a little bit for you now, or now that things are slightly getting back to normal, is it about this? Is it
Yes.
starting to go back to the status quo of what you're used to?
No, it is not going back to normal, and I don't know if we will. I mean, this is going to change us in a lot of ways. I know that in my industry, as we started to work again, you really have to watch people's eyes because you don't get any facial cues. I mean, with your scene partner, of course, you're maskless, but the director's talking to you, and you're used to seeing a director do this, and you can see the eyes, and you can see what they're doing with their mouth, and you kind of, you're feeding off them, off their face. What do you want? What are you looking for? What am I not giving you? What can I offer you? And now you got to do it all with the eyes. So it really forces you to watch people's eyes and to listen really carefully. Because one, if you're half deaf like I am, you can't hear through the damn mask. And two, you got to really be sure that you understand what the person's saying, only seeing their eyes. So it's weirdness, and it feels like half communication. How's it like for you in your life, in your activities?
I was gonna say it's interesting because just as you said, a lot of things that you take for granted in terms of uh, being able to interpret what people are saying, and picking up what they're trying to communicate to you, you have to get from only one source, which are the eyes. Versus you can get kind of an idea based on the way their lips are moving, or the way that they're inflecting a certain word. And now that we're wearing masks, that's kind of muffled, so you can't really use that as a resource. So that part of it's been really really fascinating in terms of a lot of things that you take for granted in terms of how we naturally communicate, that you kind of have to do
And
extra work now in terms of being able to read that type of thing.
and they can't touch you. And human touch is very important in all endeavors, but it's really important in this industry, um, to be close to a person, to be able to reach out, put your hand on their shoulder. You know, we're a very touchy-feely industry for a reason, because we're trying to communicate human emotions to a viewer, and a lot of that has to do with how people are communicating with one another on set. So to be 6 feet away from a person whose eyes I can only see from 6 feet away, it's a hell of a thing to try to communicate. It really is. Now, The Parish, we shot this before the pandemic. So luckily we didn't have to go through that with this. If they do a sequel, I hope we'll be past the pandemic by that time.
Gotcha, gotcha. And with that being said, you're talking about sequels. I was looking at some of the things that you have on tap in terms of like the slate of projects that are happening, and there are a lot of projects that are announced, a lot of that are in development for you, a lot that are in post. So I have to ask, man, how do you find the time? Because it seems like it was almost like a novel of the list of things that you have happening, and I'm sure some of it is perhaps a result of the circumstances, but still quite impressive. So
I think it was my father that messed me up that way, if it is messed up. And the mess up is, or it could be, I guess, a blessing, is my dad raised all of us with an idea of what it meant to be a man. I know it's really like, very old fashioned, but it's the way I was raised, and that part of the value of a man is a man works, either to provide for his family or just for his own dignity. And so that's a strong driver in my life. I've got to be working on something, even if it's something that is not going to make a lot of money. That's just something I want to do creatively. I need to have a project. I've got to be working on something all the time. So that's why I keep so many projects like in the pot, because if one's not happening because of funding or something, then I can go to the other one. And it's good because things come at you unexpectedly that you didn't know were going to come. Like something's been sitting dormant for 5 years, and then suddenly they got funding and they're ready to go. So I like working that way. I like to work.
awesome stuff. Well, with that being said, Bill, I want to thank you so much as always for coming on the show and talking about the parish. Before I let you go, as I always do, can you tell folks where they can find you, and if you want to plug any of the other upcoming projects that you are excited about?
Yeah, you can find me at billoberst.com. And I've got an episode of my podcast on the homepage there called All the Wounded Monsters. It's a reading from Phantom of the Opera. It's pretty close to my soul. People might want to check it out, and check out my podcast, which is Gothic Good Night. The Parish will be out in March. It's coming from Uncorked Entertainment. And if you want to look it up, check it out, see the trailer. It's The Parish, Parish. And it's from David Hogan. I think that people will be surprised by it, because, as I say, it's an exorcism movie that's also about grief, which is kind of relevant right now.
Definitely. So again, I want to thank Bill Oberst for coming on Movers and Shakers this afternoon. As I said, on the East Coast, this morning on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I said, you can find us here on Facebook, which is being live streamed, but you can also find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD, on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited, and of course you can find me, Brandon Troy ENT, on Twitter, and Brandon Troy _ENT on Instagram. If you enjoy many of these interviews that we have, of course you can check us out here. Make sure you like and subscribe, all of that jazz. Again, Bill, thanks so much. For those of you out there, be safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.